Should we talk about the orange tights?
It's okay.
Okay. Hi, I'm Orly. I'm one of the founders of TheraListen.
Hi, I'm Rachel, the other founder.
So what brought us to TheraListen, Rachel?
Well, we were both in private practice and very different private practices, but still calling each other and having some of the same challenges, that we were lonely, that we wanted to be able to consult regularly, to have support, to have a community. And I think something that was really becoming apparent is that neither of us were meeting clients in person anymore, that we were moving virtual, that it was more convenient, more accessible for our clients.
For sure.
And we were noticing that we were full and having to turn people away. And I personally was struggling with accepting insurance. I was on a plan and documentation was a ton of work and I wasn't particularly great at it. And at the same time, like ethically, I wanted to be able to see people through insurance and be able to make referrals to people that I trust who also accepted insurance.
Yeah, I think that's one of the really complicated things about mental health is that like insurance companies right now are just not paying a lot of money. And so if you've gone to school and you get a master's and you've got your student loans and all of that, it really isn't affordable to be able to offer insurance, like that you accept insurance and go to all the trainings that you want to go to and have the kind of life that you want to have, not seeing 100 clients a week. I mean, I couldn't be a good therapist if I saw that many clients.
Right.
But, you know, if you have a larger practice and a larger base of operations, then it really becomes something that is sustainable. So I think that was something for me also. You know, I treat a certain population, perinatal mental health, and these women and families have just added a baby and finances are really tight.
Right.
And so to be able to say to people, you know, I'm sorry, I know you want to see me and I want to treat you, but I can't do that because you can't afford my fee. It didn't feel great.
It doesn't feel great. Right. And I was accepting insurance and it was really challenging. At the end of every day, I was sitting there doing tons of paperwork and honestly not having the time to see more clients or to be able to go to the trainings and do the other things. And, you know, the other part of my life, other than being a therapist and a supervisor, is I'm also a social work professor. I love teaching social work. I love doing research. And to be able to do those other things really takes a support team. And that's kind of what we've been building at TheraListen.
Yeah. So welcome to You're Such a Great Listener. This is the first episode of our podcast where we talk about all things about therapy and about TheraListen. So I think, you know, in thinking about founding TheraListen, I think that insurance piece was one of the really important ones. And I think another one was really recognizing that there isn't a lot of great opportunities out there for people who don't have their independent license yet to really get the training that they need to be independently licensed. And I know that was another real motivating factor for us. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So I have been in social work for over 15 years, which sometimes feels like a really long time. And I don't feel that old, but I'm approaching that old. And when I was looking to get my clinical license, I had the privilege really of working at an agency in Brooklyn that offered excellent supervision. Like I traveled over an hour and a half from my day job at a nursing home doing end of life and palliative care work to this clinic a couple times a week and on Sundays. And there I learned about clinical social work and how much I loved it. And part of that was the training. I had a wonderful mentor who offered to all the emerging clinicians individual supervision, group supervision. We had family meetings, we had team meetings, and it was kind of like clinical boot camp. It was really where I learned about evidence-based practice, learned about case consulting, learned about how to really support clients where they're at, and really I think became the social worker that I am today. Those opportunities are few and far between nowadays, I think. And at TheraListen, we're really trying to replicate that for our clinicians in a virtual space that's creating that type of community, that's creating those type of educational opportunities. And what we're finding and what we really believe in is that with those educational opportunities and with that mentorship and with that supervision, clinicians are really able to offer amazing therapy. And, you know, we've been able to really hone in on creating those opportunities for our clinicians.
Yeah, I have to say, Rachel really is the one who kind of puts together our supervision, and it's been lovely to kind of watch you develop this program for all of our clinicians where they really, on a multiple times a week are talking with a really experienced clinician and getting insight, whether it's about a certain way of treating or a certain disorder, to just watch them really get the support that they need so that they're not kind of like, oh, I've never treated this before, but like this is the person on my caseload. I guess I'll figure it out with them.
Right. And I think part of that has also been working with amazing experienced clinicians to
Yeah.
really find the right supervisors for our emerging social workers. And many of our social workers are coming in with years, even decades of experience. They've been in the field, but not necessarily doing clinical work, and being able to pivot those amazing social work skills from whatever settings that they've been in to clinical social work with supervision, with mentorship. And that the supervisors that work at TheraListen are really also committed to our mission statement of offering affordable, accessible, quality mental health that's evidence-based. That means that research supports what we're doing, that research informs the practice, and that our clinicians are really developing their own professional selves and figuring out the kinds of clients that they want to see, their clinical style, and that this is really a community of healing.
Yeah. So a lot of people end up being social workers or therapists. I'm a licensed mental health counselor myself because they grew up hearing, "Oh, you're such a great listener," and people just talk to you about their problems all day long.
So I don't know if I've ever heard that.
Yeah. So how did you end up being a social worker if no one ever said that to you?
And now I'm a social worker. I research, I educate. I don't know if I've ever been complimented that I'm a good listener.
Well, let me be the first.
Okay.
I call Rachel all the time when I have problems. She's a great listener. But if no one ever told that to you,
I don't know. So what brought you into this?
Oh, well, I was a great listener.
So Orly actually was an educator before becoming a therapist. And I think that's a skill set that she brings to TheraListen, that you're able to take material and really make it accessible to the clinicians, and you're also really working on developing a curriculum for the clinicians to be able to get their continuing education credits so that training can be done in-house to really enhance their skill set and also help them to achieve their professional goals.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on. And I really am kind of passionate about making sure that emerging clinicians really have the skills and know what they're doing, and are willing to learn new things. If you are not willing to learn new things, you should not be in this field. Like Rachel said, evidence-based practice is so important, making sure that what you're doing has research behind it. And as we know in all sorts of scientific fields, right, research is constantly moving. What we thought made sense before might not make sense anymore. We used to think you gotta take trauma patients and they have to repeat their story over and over.
That's the reason I went back to school.
Really?
I had a case when I was at this clinic, and at the time we were doing something called trauma-focused CBT, and it was super in vogue at the time, and we were in supervision groups, and any client that was referred by the district attorney's office or that where there was known trauma, we would do this intervention called trauma-focused CBT. Just one of the challenges of offering TFCBT was that the client had to be in like a really safe, secure space to be able to be vulnerable. And I had a client who I didn't know she was being sexually abused.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't part of the intake. It wasn't part of the referral. I had information that she had witnessed abuse, but not that she had been abused. And we started doing TFCBT, and I was getting tremendous supervision and really trained and getting certified in TFCBT. And all of a sudden she started like seriously decompensating really, really quickly. She went from being functional to like just struggling with daily life. And without going into too many details, she completely decompensated. And I learned that she had been abused. She was she had been being directly abused. And I felt like research had failed us. Like that, we were told that, this is the modality to use. And it was really through going back to school and writing plenty of papers on trauma, And then finally coming across a book by Babette Rothschild, and a clinician who really has done wonderful work around trauma and how clinicians can work with trauma, where she explains, like, you have to be in a safe, secure space to be able to lean into the vulnerability, and you can process trauma without retelling trauma. And in fact, entering into that space can sometimes cause clients to really decompensate and not be able to manage. And, it's one thing to be able to lean into vulnerability. It's another thing to have to, lose your equilibrium. And really thinking about trauma-informed practice has been something that I've been doing for quite a while, but it was really learning the research and processing, why did research fail us, or why didn't specific intervention not work? And leaning into that vulnerability as a clinician, I think that's really been a lifelong goal for me now, to be able to really think about trauma-informed care as something that all our clinicians do, and that with trauma-informed practice, and culturally informed practice, and with evidence-based practice, that we're always thinking about what's best for our clients, how to keep them safe, how to keep them functional so that they can lead happier, healthier lives.
Yeah, that's great. Happier, healthier lives, I think, is the key. I think, people are like, what am I going to get? I'm doing fine. What am I going to ever get out of therapy? Right. And yeah, maybe you're going to work and you're getting out of bed every day and you're going about your life, but could you be doing it in a healthier way? Could you be doing it, feeling more satisfied about what's going on? Like, I think there's a lot of maybe generational stuff also. You don't have to talk about everything. If you talk about it, it'll make it worse. And, we were just talking about trauma, and like, I guess sometimes when you talk about it, it does make it worse. But sometimes when you stuff it down and you think it'll never go anywhere, and it's like one of those, like the worms in the can. It's gonna explode.
It pops back. And we see that. With trauma, with PTSD parenting, like people who have gone through childhood traumas, they've managed it. They've been able to push it down, and all of a sudden they're parenting. You're a perinatal mental health specialist, so you really. Oh
my God, I could get on a soapbox about this. I won't right now, but generally I'll just say that what they don't tell you about parenting is that any stuff you haven't figured out about yourself, anything from your childhood, like, oh, thank God I'm not in my parents' home anymore, I don't have to deal with that anymore. It's going to come back. You can be sure. You will see it again in your own child, for sure.
Right. And thinking back to like the evidence-based practice of, what we're doing here at TheraListen is really supporting our clinicians with knowing what the evidence-based practice is, to be able to think outside the box, that there's not one solution, and really be person-centered. That if you're coming to TheraListen for therapy, we're going to start where you're at. If you're reporting symptoms and you want to have a better night's sleep, be more active, if you want to have better relationship with your loved ones, with your coworkers, if you're managing a bad breakup or processing some grief, that we're going to start where you're at. And that's great practice.
Yeah. So what do you love about therapy?
Oh, that's a good question. What do I love about therapy? I think over time, therapy is about self-realization, and it's really exciting to watch people function better, and to be able to lean into their vulnerabilities, and to say, I am happier, healthier, have more meaningful relationships than in the past. But that it doesn't always go in that linear direction. And being able to kind of support people during that journey, and witnessing that journey, and being able to celebrate the joys together, and being able to be present and be a support system during the challenges. Because I mean, the people that we're seeing are good people, right? Our clinicians come to us with their cases, and we're hearing about amazing people with real challenges, real life challenges. And that's part of the amazing, holy work that we do, right? That we have the privilege of being there during the happy times, but also during those private times where there's true internal struggles.
Yeah. What you're saying about it not being linear, like it doesn't go directly up, just reminds me of when I was starting out as a clinician, and I had a client that I saw for only 4 sessions, and then he was like, I'm not coming back. And I said, why aren't you coming back? And he said, well, every time I leave here, I'm upset.
Yeah.
And so my wife said to me, well, why are you even going to therapy if you're so upset every time you leave? And I was kind of young in my career, and I didn't know how to kind of explain it properly, or maybe it was my fault because I didn't prepare him for it properly, that it's not linear. It's not all the way up. If you've been ignoring things for a long time, then sometimes it gets a little uncomfortable to talk about it. And, we have to be really careful, I think, also as clinicians, to make sure that our clients are aware. It's not going to be the easiest, but I'm going to be here. I'm going to keep listening until it becomes a little bit easier for you. And we really have to realize that, like, sometimes, you'll have a really good run and then you might have a setback.
Yeah.
And that's part of the healing process that goes on.
Right. And I think you're also touching on like the ideas of like more short-term versus long-term therapy, and like, what are our expectations going into therapy? Some issues can be addressed in more of a short-term, 8 to 12 sessions. You come in with a specific concrete problem. You want to learn the coping skills, whether it's cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness-based stress reduction, really be able to learn some concrete skills to then address the things that are challenging you. And then you feel confidence of, okay, I'm feeling better. I can do this. Go practice on your own, and then decide whether or not you want to return to therapy in the future. Or is it something that's more long-term? Is it that childhood stuff that you've kind of repressed that's going to take more than a few months to unpack, right?
Yeah.
Will it mean, for a few months, just working on coping skills, sleeping better, eating healthier, exercising more, having better work-life balance, putting up some of those boundaries in those unhealthy relationships. And then once you have all those coping skills kind of in place, you can kind of go back to where some of your challenges started. And that takes longer than a few sessions, right? Like, and you kind of talked a little bit about the expectations. I think part of the challenge in therapy is really having expectations for yourself, right? In terms of, how long is this going to take? How long is it going to take for me to feel better? Is this the right therapist? We haven't talked about that yet, but you're such a great listener. You can be the best listener, but if you're not feeling it, it might not be the best connection, right? And so much of great therapy is about the relationship. Yeah.
So you love reading.
Yeah.
If you could recommend one book, fiction or nonfiction, about therapy, or, what would it be?
Orly, this is hard. I can say, I teach social work, and a book that I think has made a really important impact on a lot of my students, and I want to say myself, is Oprah Winfrey's book with Bruce Perry. It's What Happened to You. I'm butchering the title. Check.
Yeah, I'm going to check.
I have it on my, this is my short-term memory fart. And also, like, something I'd love to do with some mental health books is then I YouTube it and look for interviews with the author. And there's been like some great interviews between Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey, whether it's on Oprah. She did an interview, I think it was at Columbia, but really, what's the name?
It's called What's Happened to You.
It's great. It's great. It's great because it really explains trauma, and it explains the neurobiology of trauma. It explains how to kind of approach trauma and healing. So that's a good one, because I really do believe in trauma-informed therapy and thinking about, whether it's big T or little t trauma, but getting to know yourself better. Actually, I take it back. I have another book. I love that book.
Should we let her do 2 books?
I'm going to do 2 books. The other is the Self-Love Journal. I'm butchering the name. Okay. Let's give it.
All right. You keep talking. I'll find
it. Has like over 20,000, almost 5-star reviews on Amazon. And to get that many reviews on Amazon, you have to really like believe in the product. People have women. I'm guessing this is women. It has a pretty cover. It's a journal. Yeah, that one. The Self-Love Workbook for Women. I love it. And all my supervisees know that I love it.
Can men use it?
Yeah, but it's more for women. I'll be honest. If we want one for men, that's also about boundaries. Ooh, Stop Walking on Eggshells. I think that's like a classic, but really understanding boundaries and codependent relationships and how to have healthier relationships. So I don't know if I can pick one book, but these are some books. Yeah.
Okay.
I think, yeah, yes. Yeah. Orly didn't prepare me for that question, but we are going to have in our podcast a monthly book club.
Yep.
We're going to have a book club.
What's our first book?
Bad Therapy.
Oh,
Ooh.
okay.
Who's that by?
Bad
We should
Therapy?
know it. Yeah.
We should.
I read it.
We should
it
be
was good.
prepared.
So Bad Therapy. This is we live in the moment.
Yeah.
Because we're busy
Abigail
being therapists.
Schreier? Is that
Yeah. Yep. Bad Therapy. Why the kids aren't growing up. Yeah.
Yeah. Bad Therapy.
Yep.
We'll post it.
Yeah, we're going to post it. Yeah. And there's been some great podcasts already about it. So can we post those too? Yeah. We're going to try to do that.
Yeah.
And maybe some articles about it.
Awesome.
Because there's a lot of talk about, is therapy even helpful? Like, or is therapy bad? Does it, does it help, or does it make you just realize, like you said, that your problems are not helping you? And is it better to, push it and shove it under the rug?
Yeah, I hear that. So I guess stay tuned. That'll be our next conversation. Thank you so much for joining us at You Are Such a Great Listener.